So next up in our afternoon sessions in Big Talk from Small Libraries 2025, we are going to be getting to know your community and ideas for your board and staff. And joining us is Angela Watkins, who's from the Aztec Public Library in New Mexico. Population served 6,146. So Angela, I'll hand over to you to tell us all about how we can do this.
Oh, good afternoon. Welcome to Getting to Know Your Community and Ideas for Your Board and Staff. My name is Angela Watkins, and I am the Aztec Public Library Director in San Juan County in the Four Corners area of the state of New Mexico. Aztec is about 13.1 square miles, and we service a population that's at a 29.1% poverty level. Our customers are a mixture of Native Americans, Hispanics, whites, with a dusting of Asian and African Americans. And the median household age is 34 with an income around $45,846. And the city's population, as said before, is 6,214. The primary language that is reported that's spoken in the household is English. And Aztec benefits from an agricultural production with a seasonal farmers market. And our community is host to the annual Aztec Highland Games and Celtic Music Festival. And the Aztec Ruins National Monument sits right smack in the middle of our city. We have the Aztec Museum that houses one of the finest collections of the authentic Western Americana. And we also host an antique truck and tractor show. And if you visit the website for the city of Aztec, you'll find the Spirit of 63, which is 63 things to do in Aztec. But I want you to keep in mind the red that you see of patient to primary care physician ratio in San Juan County. It is 1,787 to 1. That's going to come into play later on with why we do what we do here in Aztec.
Mm-hmm.
So every library does a community needs assessment, and that's just a way of collecting data and surveying what's important for you to know that your community needs and what resources are available to you. And how do we define that for libraries? When we look at the word population, it's a makeup of your community and which community members are at risk and what assets do your community members offer. Keep that in mind. That's going to be extremely important later. We look at attitudes and values. What do people in your community care about? What beliefs are important to consider and respect? And what are the local attitudes towards certain issues? You must look at place, how your program address and respect the places that are important to your community, what infrastructure exists, and is there an attribute of the location that should be addressed or improved? So defining your community can help set the scope for your assessment by giving you a sense of who should be involved. So don't overlook the assets at all that you already have. The resources and assets can be made up of people, organizations and associations, locations, and equipment and tools. So while a community needs assessment serves to identify the challenges you have and any gaps that are in your community, it can also help you understand underutilized resources and assets that are available to your library and the community. Keep in mind, you have internal resources such as your grants and volunteers and tools and programs, but you can also leverage your external resources to develop something that's more effective. And by utilizing both internal and external, you can build a more sustainable and effective infrastructure for addressing your community needs. That's extremely important. So the impact you want to have, strive to have an impact that is getting people involved. That's your connection to your community is the people, not just in the community, but your employees. That's going to be extremely important. But keep in mind, involvement, motivating, positive achievement, cooperation, and trust. Let that be your defining um, uh, uh, moment for your people and programs. So, questions to ponder. I have a person I consider a great mentor to me, and that is Mr. Eli Ganay. He's the New Mexico State Librarian. And one of the tools that I was trained with, he wrote a section in this toolkit, and it was called Awakening to Community Potential. And I want to quote him on something that he put in there that just really woke me up. When we start to see our neighbors as resources, from those we call community leaders to those who too often get forgotten about, we awaken to new potential for building a stronger, more resilient community. He also said the library is one place, perhaps the only place, where your staff knows a large cross-section of people and what their backgrounds are. Your staff is more valuable to you than you may think. But keep in mind these questions that are starred. What are your community demographics? It's extremely important to know who you're trying to cater to. What type of activities or cultural events are popular in your community? How can the library support programs and events that are already happening? And make sure you're checking the community calendar so you're not bumping up against events before you schedule a program. And then check to see what library goals does the program you're about to create serve and who it serves. Also look at some potential partnerships. And are there any grant opportunities? Keep in mind, when you partner with museums and universities, that opens you up to bigger grants. So know who your community experts are. That's going to save you a lot of funds that you can use to purchase more for the collection or program by utilizing the people that are experts in your community. Bring them in. And again, how do you interact with finding out whether your programs work? Do you survey them before, during, or after each program? And how are you doing that? A lot of people don't want to fill out forms or paper, but you're interacting with them definitely gives them a sense or feel that you value what they have to say. One of the programs we created in our library, we went out and surveyed the community to find out what was going on from a health standpoint. How could we bring that into the library and help? So we found out that the diabetes was huge in our community. So what we did was create a cooking demonstration program, which allowed us to go to the collection and pull out cookbooks. It allowed for them to have interaction with us, which was helping us to fulfill our mission statement. And but it gave a great sense of social connections too, with community member to community member. It did a lot for us. And one of the things that supported my program, a quote from R.I.M. Dunbar: since public libraries act as a community hub where individuals feel safe and come for social connection, it makes sense that public libraries would be a place where communal eating and cooking might occur. Those who eat socially more often feel happier and are more satisfied with life. They're more trusting of others and are more engaged with their local community and have more friends that they can depend on for support. That program not only gave us an opportunity to do a pull-out of the collection of cookbooks we had based on diabetes, but we also got magazines that we could give away that had recipes in it that would help them, that they could take home and they didn't have to return. So, getting to know your community. How well do you know your community? What ways have you committed, and there's the word, committed, to helping your community? Have you looked at the milestones? What we did was, in order to get to know the community, you have to get out from behind the desk and go to the supermarkets. I call ours the town hall. Interact with people at events and programs, but get out from behind the desk. You're not going to meet them that way and find out what their needs are. Then the next milestone was to look for ways to work with partners inside and outside of our community. The next milestone was to make sure that we were looking at many processes and pathways to help us achieve social dimension. And the last milestone, to meet the current needs without compromising the opportunity of the future generations. We went out and surveyed the elderly people in our community because they were the history holders. We created a slideshow of information that they provided that helped paint a map of what our community was like way back when. And what that did for the future generations, the younger generations, it was so neat to see Grandma up on a flat screen talking about how they came to Aztec, why they came to Aztec, and what was Aztec all about at the time. That was so encouraging. Little ones went back and said, Grandma's at the library on a flat screen. So that brought in the family members to come and see Grandma and hear her stories that carried on for them. So when we have what we consider community conversations, the first step into building any relationship is to know that assessment, do that assessment. That'll get you interacting with them. But I suggest highly that you go to the rurallibraries.org/toolkits and take a look at what that toolkit is offering you. If you're new to the library system, it can provide multitudes of information that is easy to follow to help you understand how to communicate with your library. One of the big parts in belonging was going out for me and engaging with the people, but not making the conversation about the library, making the conversation about them and listening very heavily to how could we help them with what their needs were. But we listened, and that is the key, listening and talking about them. You learn a whole lot. So please, if you get a chance, go to rurallibraries.org/toolkits. It provides a lot of information and makes it very easy for you to see and utilize. Understanding about building relationships, it's more than just understanding the people. It's making people feel understood. And that's what I mean by going to your supermarkets, your organization meetings, your events that's happening and so forth, and connecting with those, but make them feel understood. A couple of things in what you have the power to do that I have started, it's increased community involvement, which can lead to inclusion. And make sure that your library can encourage your customers to use the new technologies that will help reduce the digital divide. And I know throughout this whole conference, you've been hearing keywords like digital divide, helping people. We're all on the same page here on what we're doing to help. So the celebration of your community diversity, you can celebrate the unique qualities of your community, which can lead to more community buy-in and engagement. So I highly recommend getting to know who's who in your community, look at your leaders in your community, tap into those people. They'll remember you when they go vote for GO bond funds when it comes election time for that. And they'll see you as a human, someone they know, someone they've had a conversation that made them feel understood or feel good, and then they will vote for it. But rather than see you as government, and not everyone is happy about government, so it takes that aspect out of it and makes you a real entity to want to be a part of. So here are some ideas that you add to this by looking at the ideas that we have listed here. Surely you have a story hour that you can take the young and the old and combine for that bonding, for that story time. Create family style workshops, passive programs. We do passive programs here. On a daily basis, we'll put something out, like the state provides us with this huge coloring board. And so we just put crayons out for them to come in and sit. If they don't feel like reading that day, they just want to relax, they can sit there and color in. We have coffee that we offer, just if they just want to relax and talk to someone. We can make ourselves available by just giving a cup of coffee and giving a few minutes to listen. That helps a lot. We have discussion groups. We have the programs with crafts and activities to help with those, again, that just want to relax. But also invite your banks in for financial literacy programs. Do memory programs. If you live in an area where it has a lot of elderly people that are having memory problems, put those out, and talk up your history of the community. That brings back what they felt good about being here in your community. Skill sharing. Again, arts and crafts programs. Digital literacy is at the top of the list for both beginners and advanced. Help them with that. But on a more entertaining part, games, which you just heard in the presentation prior to this, putting board games out, inviting yoga if you have the space, or even dance parties. You'd be surprised at how many people just want to come in and listen to music, and then they start tapping their feet, and some will even be bold enough to just get up and move around. It doesn't need to be a coordinated thing, just movement. With your story time programs, break out the head, what do you call it, the dance flags, and just have them move around with that. It is so encouraging, and it's such a relieving thing. A little bit about us. When COVID hit in 2020, we had to lock our doors like everyone else did, but we cared enough about our elderly people in the community, and some of those elderly people are having to take care of grandkids and so forth. How could we help them, and how could we get books to them? So we started the Caring campaign by finding a private donor that provided funds for groceries for our elderly, meaning they could call us and say, hey, I needed laundry detergent, I needed some meat, or I needed some milk. We would take their order and go to the store, purchase those things. We got Domino's to donate some free single topping pizzas that helped with those that had kids in the household. And that gave us a chance to bring that stuff back to the library and put some deleted books that we had with the groceries. and we delivered those. And we also started working with Colorado University Boulder on preparations for the traveling wall called We Are Water. Water was such a huge thing when it came to COVID. And in the Four Corners area, our water, well, was depleting in all 4 states there. We were having water issues. So why not take that on and educate our people who drive around in our communities and see signs that says drought, extreme drought, rainy. They have no mathematical component behind that. But this wall gave the opportunity for kids and adults to engage with how many beads fell down if you push the button, drought or rainy, or and so forth. That was so neat for them to do that, and for us to get to see that the ideas were clicking on water, about water. But we also invited outside organizations, the Aztec Ruins National Monument, the schools, neighboring communities, businesses, and we did public visitors in and out of state. We invited. It was a success. Our next step was to start in with recycling in 2023. So we partnered with Waste Management to provide us with reusable shopping bags and pencils, recycled paper, coloring books, and flower seeds. So we took the flower seeds and created a seed library. We used reusable bags. It had Waste Management on it, but that was funds that we didn't have to buy bags just because it had, we would pay for a logo of ours to be on. We were recycling, and that became huge. So they now supply us with those bags. That's us showing our partner that we will market them as well as they can help us, help our community. Then the next step, we took a look at a part of the community that doesn't get addressed when it comes to library stuff. We created a justice station, and the justice station gave access to the community members to appear in the magistrate courts that was located in McKinley and San Juan County in the state of New Mexico. It gave access to the library. It was another source of access for us, but it was a simple concept that is a benefit to our community, and it supported our mission statement. But it allowed people, say if you got a ticket in McKinley County, but because the cost of gas is high, food is high, you didn't have the funds to get back to McKinley County to appear before the magistrate courts. Well, now you can come to the public library and you can appear. We created a flat screen in the computer that is just designed for the courts. And you can appear before the judge that you were assigned to appear before without having to worry about a bench warrant. That took care of that segment of our community. And next, we were awarded a grant that they had extra congressional spending money to be able to purchase a sound booth that was delivered to us for people to go in that they could record oral history in. It's a privacy area. Telehealth, you can get in there and get online with a healthcare specialist and get your needs met. Remember, I talked about the ratio in the very first slide to physicians. This is where we play a part in providing us a private space that they can come in and get on camera and have FaceTime with a healthcare expert and get their needs met, whether it's getting their medications refilled or just asking questions. Here in our area, if you're new, we have so few doctors, you can't get in to see a doctor. Or if you have a doctor already, it takes a month of Sundays to get an appointment set up. So we're hoping that this will help relieve the stress on our telehealth system and telemedicine. So we were working hard in this library to make sure that our community needs are being met. One way to get word out to our community, we purchased some flat screens with Go Bond money, and we have 3 inside the library, 1 at the animal shelter, 1 at City Hall, and 1 at the senior center. And on those flat screens, one of them provides just soft music, background music in our gang seating area in the middle of the library. One provides the events that are going on, plus the ones at the senior center and animal and at City Hall. It allows people to know what's happening in our community. And then the other one we have, as you walk into the lobby, it can float between what's happening in the community, and when we have holidays rolling around, we put on holiday music on the screen so people can start relaxing. So by the time they do enter into the library, they're a little more happier and so forth. It makes it a lot easier. So what is
Angela, we have a question about one of those on the slide. I don't know if you mentioned this mixed in with anything else, but someone was curious about how that justice station was funded.
Believe it or not, it didn't cost the library anything.
Oh my.
Going to the magistrate courts, the way things are starting to roll down, and this started back in when COVID was happening, the courts had to shut down like everybody else. And so with that mindset on having to work online, this is the direction that the Supreme Court is starting to want to head to on having these in public places like libraries where people can access the courts without having to have those issues of no shows in court and putting the burden on people. But if you go to your courts and ask them about the justice station or what plans do they have, there's funding there that they will set you up, hopefully with, and all it is a computer with a flat screen that is, they can't go online and do anything other than appear before the courts. And you provide just a little booklet telling them how to access. We have it up around the clock on our flat screens in that private room. And it's very simple. It's in layman's terms. All they have to do is point and click to appear before the judge. The staffing, all we do is let them in, and they're aware that the staff cannot answer any legal questions or any other questions other than we let them in a room. The instructions are there so they can see it, and they sit and appear before the courts. They're on camera the whole time. So there's no staffing involved as far as having to sit in there and do anything. This is just providing that private space. And by
so this comes from the court side. So libraries can come to their courts and say, hey, is this something you're offering or wanting to do? We have the space, the location where it can be done.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. You have to provide the privacy space, and that's all on your end. The courts should provide you. We didn't have to pay for anything. They provided us with a rolling stand so we can move that computer to any room. We can move it around. And in the telehealth booth, the sound booth, that will also allow for distant learning and a second justice station. So either
the privacy issue. Yeah.
Exactly. And both are beneficial because it's catching a part of the community that is forgotten about. It's also giving uh, uh, the family money back that they would they don't have to spend on being no shows at court.
Mhm.
So it's a well-rounded program, and it doesn't cost the library anything other than providing the space.
Space and the directing people to it. So then someone wants to know, do the people book the Justice Center through you or through the court?
Yeah, no, through us. They can go the way we have it set up. We have one in Farmington, one in Bloomfield, and this one here. And they can go to any one of those and access the court and the judge that they have to go to. So any library that is in our area, they can go to access the courts.
Okay, so the difference, so the Justice Station is just the computer itself that just connects to the court.
Yes.
The telehealth is that privacy booth that people can go into and get, can you have that set up with your own stuff just for doing telemedicine type things, but people could also bring in the Justice Station into that booth if they want.
Yes.
Privacy.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
I like it.
Everything is privacy. And the only thing we have, if they ask, we just keep a count of how many people are utilizing those resources. We're not there to give them advice or anything, but we do have them for the telehealth booth sign a consent form for the HIPAA laws that my staff doesn't have to do anything other than sign them in and make sure that we clean it after each use. And they can book it, and we treat it just like we would computer time on regular computers to our use.
Sounds like a great program, yeah.
Oh, it's tapping into those areas that don't come into the library, that are coming in for the first time and seeing, hey, wow, I didn't know libraries offered this.
Yeah.
So what is something you might be able to do in your community? When you, again, look at the strengths your community have and the weaknesses. When you're talking, don't just talk about the weaknesses of the library or the best things that we do in the library. Talk about the weak things too, because you want non-users to be supportive. And if all you're talking about is the success of the library, then they don't see a need to support you. So make sure you're sharing both the weaknesses and the strengths in order to help identify what your community needs are. Do you people in your community, how do they feel when they are they connected to the library, to each other? Are there groups who feel underrepresented? Nowadays, as in the past, as always, public libraries have always been for everyone. Now we definitely have to make sure of that, but we need to look around our community. Every community's makeup is different. You need to know who's in your community so you can be inviting and give them that sense of belonging. So look at how different ways your community can be strengthened through the presence of your library. What community do you want to build? That's definitely a higher up thing. Who are you trying to reach? And when you see the underrepresented portion of the community, that's where that Justice Station and that telehealth, telemedicine booth come in. We're looking at sustainability, folks. But know what are the interests of the community that you serve? And then how can you tie those interests into something fun? And are there community partners you can engage with to help assist you with that? What we did was we created this list of for partnerships, what did we want for partnerships? We wanted partners to be effective, and there must be benefits to both. And so we looked around our community for those partners. What the library want partners to do is to be able to extend the reach and influence of the library, attract new audiences, and build community relationships, provide credibility to the library and its program, and support the library's efforts. And of course, provide needed resources and funding. One of the things the libraries have to offer partners, it's a multitude of benefits: access to targeted audiences, community recognition, credibility to the community, program collaboration and participation in partner events, advertising, efficient use of resources, the experience, and the strength of a trusted institution. We can offer that. So when you're looking at making your lists like this, make sure you prioritize your contact lists so that you make the best use of your time. And definitely, I heard this said earlier as well, so we're all preaching the same thing. Be open to opportunities that can come your way unexpectedly. Just be willing to look for partnerships that can come to you. With that said, let's look at ideas for your board and staff. Do you know the strengths of your team members? Examples of employee strengths that are needed if you want to build a dreamy culture, look at your people first. Some of these will resonate, some of them you never thought of, but the people you want to build that team that's going to be successful, go out and engage with the people in the community and the resources that you offer. Dependability is one of them. Don't put someone in there that you know you can't count on to be where they said they're going to be. You have to be team oriented. You must have someone that's an active listener and someone that wants to take on the responsibility of supporting what your organization is trying to do. But these are some things on this list that you can look at your team and evaluate who's the one that has the motivation, leadership qualities, organizational skills, goal oriented. Keep that in mind. So the strengths of your team members should look something like this. With your action items, the first thing, help them learn their strengths. A lot of times we have employees that aren't sure of what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, even when they interview. They couldn't tell you because they never thought of it that way. The next thing you want to look at is helping them to discover what gets in the way of their excellence, and then give each person time to self-reflect and consider what they do best. One of the things I do in this library is when it comes to evaluation time on how they're doing and stuff like that, I have them evaluate themselves, whether it's on projects, whether it's on personal, whatever. They have a sheet that they follow. So when we sit down to talk about their strengths and their weaknesses, it helps me and it helps them to better understand where I'm trying to lead them so they can become the best that they can be. But tell them consistently what they can deliver and so on. And I went backwards instead of going forward. So setting goals. The 5 reasons people don't set goals, and some of you may be able to resonate with this, but predictability, conditioning, fear of losing, fear of winning, and over expectations. I've heard so many times people say, not just inside the library, but in other organizations that I've worked with, I know I can't reach that goal, so I won't even try. The fear of winning. Some people do not set goals because they can't imagine themselves being capable of handling a new behavior of success. The fear of losing. A lot of people don't set goals because they're afraid they're going to be criticized for not reaching them. That time and time again. And then there's the conditioning part where they are so conditioned in a way that they just sit back and wait for those goals to take action in order to accomplish them. And then the predictability part, a lot of people feel threatened by change, and so they resist goal settings. Anything uncomfortable. Without realizing, goals have benefits, and they provide us with a sense of direction. They help motivate us. They make us feel good about ourselves and what we do. They point out our strengths and weaknesses so we can improve upon them. And they help us visualize what's important to us, plans of actions to achieve those goals and carry them out. It helps us to make better decisions. And it makes us responsible for our own lives and our group responsible for its own success or failure. It forces us to set priorities, and it can make us feel committed. Both measuring individual and group progress helps to sharpen our leadership skills. So to set clear goals, be prepared to write down potential collaborators, limitations to keep your goals from becoming overwhelming. That is always a huge part. You don't want to overwhelm people. And any emotions you're feeling, appreciation for your milestones you'll hit, and refinements that you can make for your plan as you go. So some of the key things: write it down, break it down, make it visible, and then talk it up. And now that you have clear goals, everyone's on the same page for standards of excellence, and the right people are in the right roles performing those tasks. When it comes to project planning, here's the 12 W's. Planning activities require careful thought and preparation and a great team. Your team is more than a group of assembled people that are striving for the same goals. Your team is a powerhouse of potential. They are connected to everyone in the community and some outside of your community. So if you want that goal to be met, make sure that your team members are valued, they're included, the communication is there. Ask them, what are you guys planning to do? Why do you want to do this project? When and where will the activity take place? Who will benefit from that project? And what staff members are needed to approve that project? And the big question, what funds are needed? When will the basic planning be done? What committees are necessary? What kind of publicity is needed? And who deserves a special thank you? Never ever forget to thank your supporters, your community, the individuals. Never forget the thank yous. And then ask yourself, was that project worthwhile? And what's next? And where do we go from here? As we're crossing over, getting on board, this board segment is about your library board. Have you ever had library boards that they can't agree upon things? It often stems from disagreement over policies or budget allocations, collection development, community priorities. With this next step, it's going to give you an idea of how to handle that. But decisions are made using each of these methods, and that's the autocratic method, the consensual method, and laissez-faire. Okay. The FIST to 5 system of consensus building. Consensus means that everybody in the group can support a decision, but not everyone has to think that it's the best decision, but everyone can agree that they can live with the decision as proposed. So whenever a group is discussing a possible solution or coming to a decision on any issue, the FIST to 5 is a system to make individual members' positions visible at any given time in order to seek a decision. The leader states the position which the group is adopting and asks every member of the group to show their level of support. Now, sometimes the leaders of those groups, sometimes our egos get in the way and it doesn't allow us to perform at our best. But this FIST to 5 system will give a voice to those that are not clear on what's going on, may need a little more guidance and so forth, but they will get recognized. So when it comes to the signals, if they hold up a fist means a no vote, meaning they'll block you if you choose the course that you're headed down. One finger, I don't agree, but I will not block the action. 2 fingers, it isn't my first choice, but I can live with it. 3 fingers, I am neutral, but please convince me to support it. That's the person you want, because you want to be able to give them a better understanding. It may take a little longer for them to catch on, but you're giving them the ability to say, hey, I need a little more. The 4 fingers, it's a good idea and I'll work for it. And 5, this is a great idea, I'll support it fully and we'll work for the success. So your group of FIST to 5 can continue the process intermittently throughout the discussions until a total consensus is a result. These 3 fingers from each member of the group or clearly indicate if you don't have the time that you must move on to other issues, but you can always come back to the part that is everyone is struggling with. I like to think of library groups and teams as the sunflower. Sunflower symbolizes loyalty and devotion, positivity and joy, faith and devotion and hope, bounty, fertility, growth and resilience, perseverance and motivation, and abundance. That's how I like to think of my team here. They're all sunflowers and we're all ready to bloom. So that is my presentation. If there's any questions, I can help answer if I haven't answered anything already or something that you need clarification on. I'm available.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Angela. This was some great resources. Yeah, leave your slide up there so people can have your contact info if they need. Lots of good resources, information in here. This is something we do here in Nebraska, community assessment, community needs response planning, and great resources. Eli there, he's been on some webinars I've done here talking about that website of his there with the resources. So I was really excited to hear you talk about him. He's great.
He's wonderful. We've got a great state team, and putting that toolkit together and making it available for every librarian, and making it simple enough to follow. Especially for small libraries that don't have a whole lot of funding, don't have a whole lot of staffing. This can help you evaluate things and know how to interact with your community. It's a great tool.
Yeah. We got some good comments coming through. Amazing. This is a great presentation. Yes. And remember, all the presentations will be available afterwards, so you'll have access to all this information and things that Angela talked about. If anybody has any questions, we do have a few minutes here. We can ask questions of you. Type into the questions section of your GoToWebinar interface. I do have one that came up earlier that I'm going to ask you about here. Have you heard from any community members who are unhoused, the homeless? If so, has the library been able to meet some of their needs? Do you have any of that going on in your community?
We don't have a whole lot of a homeless population. We don't have a shelter here. It's 20 minutes in the opposite direction, but the maybe we might see one or two. They'll come into the library. I offer them coffee, and they'll go and sit in an area where they want privacy. We can still see them to keep an eye on them. We'll make a pass and we'll try to engage with conversation to make sure that they're comfortable, they're okay. The only thing we don't allow is sleeping in the library because we're not set up for that. But we try to make them feel they have the same rights of access as everyone else, and that's our key word, is access for all. So we try to make sure that I grew up in the Deep South, and one of the things my grandmother taught me, she only had a third grade education, but she welcomed everyone in the home, and she always had food available, whether it's a piece of candy or a cookie or something. And that I didn't realize it at the time how much of an impact it would have on my life later. But I do keep food here in my office. So if I see a kid that has gotten out of school at 3 o'clock and they had lunch at 10 o'clock, these kids are hungry by the time they get out. I have cookie or chips or something to give them until parents can pick them up. Same with my homeless father. I'll have a sandwich or something that I can offer. Or if I don't have the sandwich, I got that cup of coffee. But I want them to feel that not everybody's discriminating against you because you're homeless. We don't walk in their shoes. And so we haven't a clue as to what they're going through. The best thing we can do is be human at that time and allow that appreciation to show that, hey, at some point, I think we're all a skip, a hop, and a jump away from being homeless with our government going the way it's going. So
you don't be surprised. Yeah, it's kind of surprising how close you could be if you're not careful. Yeah, the way things are going, you don't know.
You have no idea.
Yeah. So you don't have very much experience when someone's asking about keeping them from sleeping. I mean, I know you mentioned that, but what would be a way to
the best
advice on intro? They have someone who comes and sleeps at a table every day. I guess they're struggling with that.
The best thing I've seen is interaction. The more you pass by them and say, is everything okay? What can we help you with? Let them know that you're watching them, and that helps to prevent some of that from happening. If they are sleeping at that point and they're not responding, we will call out to them. If they don't respond, then we call dispatch. Maybe they need more medical help than we are able to give them.
Could be a reason why, yeah.
There could be a reason why. So, but keep in mind, we're all human and we're all a skip, a hop, and a jump away.
Their situation. We have one other question here about those that a lot of interest in that Justice Center in your telehealth room. They want to, was there a hurdle to find footprint space for those things? How did you figure out getting that telehealth room, the space for it? Was there trouble with that?
The telehealth booth, I had to do some shifting around of furniture and stuff, but I had an area that I could do that with. And that's one of the things you need to really look at. Do you have the space? Because it's a big booth, and it has to be ADA compliant as well.
Right.
So that ramp has to be able to be there. But space, you need to make sure that's the first thing you're going to have to look at. but it plays a huge role in when you're in a small community and the nearest hospital or the nearest doctor's office is further away than they are capable of getting to. If they have an appointment, that's another key. They don't have appointments to get in right then and there when they need, and it's not like you've cut off a limb or something like that. That's where those booths come in, to be able to give them advice. They can talk to their physicians and get information on how to access the things that they need from their physician. But all the insurance companies are now coming up with, they have some sort of health care person or on site that can answer them to help with that. But that's right now, that's the best way I could find, is getting that booth in to help from the medical side for our community. Because like I said,
and that goes back to that first slide you had with, what is your, this is looking at your demographics. What is happening in your community? What's going on out there? Looking for something that you could possibly help with. And it might not be something for your community that you can do. You might not have the space in your library, and that's okay. Maybe some other location in town does. If you have a community center or something, and you can work with them and say, hey, I know of this idea of a thing that can help. I don't have a physical space, but maybe somewhere else does. Yeah.
Right. Or if you have a small room, get a flat screen and a computer and dedicate it to telehealth. You're looking for privacy. That's all you're looking for, to provide it with. And that could be on a rolling cart, and you can move it from one private room to another if you have that space, to give them that access, just like
what you already possibly have. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I think we've got to wrap this up. We did one suggestion about the homeless or the unhoused people sleeping. Maybe set up a puzzle or something for them to do. Give them something interactive to do. Hey, why don't you come over here and work on this instead of just.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We have this puzzle that needs working on. Please help us.
And you'd be surprised how many of them need something to do that make them feel a part of. Involve them. You'd be surprised at what is homeless nowadays, and what kind of skills these people have, that you might be able to help them just by letting them clean up in the restroom and come out and help gardening or something like that. Just give them something to do.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much, Angela. This was some great resources and great information. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be going back to this to dig more into all the great resources and tips you gave. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all for attending.
Yeah. Hope you stick around for the rest of the day. We've got a few more sessions still to go.
Awesome. Yes, I will.
All right.